Hello, guys. So this week I'm going to talk about something I noticed while browsing. So here's the issue. So we are on x.com here, right? And we are viewing a tweet. So let's try to unlike this tweet. So if we click unlike, let's just filter these requests here so that we can see what's going on. I think it's the favorite request. So unliking a tweet sends an unfavorite tweet request to Twitter's backend, right? And then it also decrements the tweet value here by 1, by the value that you have unliked it by, right? So liking it again will send the favorite tweet request and then updates the UI. Actually, not and then. The UI updates even before the request is sent and is successful. So this is what they call optimistic UI updates, where you update your UI expecting the request to be successful, right? So the user has a sort of instant feel to your application. So what happens if we try to like and unlike multiple times following each other, right? So let's try it. So like, unlike, like, unlike, like that. You see a lot of favorite requests are being sent, favorite and unfavorite requests are being sent. But now you're noticing something with the tweet count here. The tweet count is getting larger than it's supposed to be, right? The tweet was at 32 likes, right? So when I like it, it should go to 33, and then when I unlike it, it should go back to 32. But now we have incremented the value up to 48. So there is a bug here, right? Because this is what you are seeing here. If we try to refresh the page, you can see that our value has gone back to its correct value. So the server side value is correct, but the client is not syncing properly with the backend. So we can only speculate on what the issue is. But I'm just going to speculate that they are maybe doing the optimistic updates a little poorly when updating the value. I could be wrong, but I'm going to go with it because I've already prepared an entire repo here to try to make a video from this. Yeah, so let's go to our code base here. So I've tried to create a little like and unlike UI locally here. So this is like the most basic version of what Twitter is doing. So I just have a JSON file here where I have a favorite count variable, which I fetch and I display here as a like count. And then I have like 3 requests here to update this value. I have a favorite tweet endpoint here, which increments the favorite count. And then I also have a get favorites root here, which just reads the favorite count from the JSON file. And then I have an unfavorite tweet function here, which decrements the favorite count. So how have we implemented our favorite functionality? So let's go to our favorite component here. So we have 2 state variables here. We have an isFavorited state variable and a count variable. So when the favorite button is clicked, the handle favorite function is called, and that function sets the isFavorited variables to true or to false. It toggles it, and then we call either unfavorite or favorite tweet functions that you have defined here, which just hits our favorite tweet and unfavorite tweet endpoints here, right? So let's try to test our application, right? So when we click, I think I can pull this up a little bit. So when we click the favorite button, we send the favorite tweet request, which increments the value in our favorites JSON file. It was 7, now it's 8. And then it calls the get favorite count function, which fetches the new values and then sets the count to that value, right? So it's pretty straightforward. When you click unfavorite, it will hit our unfavorite endpoint and then refetch the data to get the correct value, right? So one thing you can notice about this is that it's pretty slow, right? We are sending basically 2 requests. One request to save the data, and then another request to fetch the new version of the data. So which makes the button feel very slow in updating the value. So what we want is a Twitter-like experience, right? We want clicking on the button and then clicking it to be instant, right? So let's try to refactor our code to factor in this new idea. So we want, when you click handle favorite, to update the count variable before we send the request. So we do it what? Optimistically, right? So let's get rid of this line here, right? So we want to set the count variable according to the value of is favorited, right? So if the value of is favorited is true, then it means the user is now unfavoriting the tweet, right? So that means we need to decrease the value of count by 1. Otherwise, we need to increase the value of count, right? So this way, liking and unliking is instant, right? So there is no waiting for the request to get sent here, right? So let's fix the request. So we don't want to fetch new data after favoriting or unfavoriting a tweet, right? So with our optimistic UI update method here, we need to simply call our action, which favorites or unfavorites, and then in case the action fails, right, we need to make sure that we revert the value back to where it was. So we need to set count. So if is favorited is true, then we need to do the opposite of what we are doing. We need to revert it back to where it was, or if it is false, we need to decrement the value of count and also unset the is favorited variable back to what it was, right? Like that. So this is like a very basic version of optimistic UI update. So let's try this and see if it works. So I think you can just refresh the page and make sure to filter here by maybe only URLs including favorites. So clicking like will send the favorite tweet, but now we have updated the UI before the request sends back anything. So same thing with unlike and favorites the tweet way before the UI tells us something. So we have sort of the same thing as Twitter there. The UI feels faster and the user doesn't know that something is going on in the background, right? Okay, so let's try to apply pressure on our requests here, right? Let's try to spam the button here. So you want to click many times at once and see if we are going to break something. So favorite and favorite, favorite and favorite, favorite and favorite. Let's try to do that a couple of times. So this seems to be holding up without breaking anything. So do you know the reason why it's not breaking? It's because our count variable is only set on the client side. So obviously other people might be liking the same tweet, for example, and the backend variable may be much larger than the client variable. So for the viewer currently viewing this tweet, for example, we only show them the value that was there when this component was loaded. So when they refresh the page, they may get different values, different from what they have here. So we don't really care about showing them the freshest data. All we want to show them is the most correct data. Okay, so do you know what can break it? So if we go back to the way we were setting the values from the backend, right? So what we were doing previously was calling our action and then calling the get favorites count function, right? So the value of count was being updated with the value for the backend. So let's try to spam it with this implementation and you will see the difference. So let's clear the requests here a bit so we can just refresh the page. Okay, so liking and unliking slowly will work, right? Because we can wait for the request to get sent and then update the data, right? So let's try to spam it. So like, unlike, like, unlike, like, unlike, like, unlike, like, unlike. Let's see if we still maintain the 8 and 9 values. Oh, and guess what? I think we broke it. We are now getting 7 as the like count instead of 8 or 9. So because of how we have implemented our backend. And even if you are using a real database, for example, every request reads this file and writes to it, right? So if several requests read access to this file, other requests may get a stale value that has been updated by another request. So that's the problem with like using real-time values from your server or your database and manipulating them as requests come by. So for something like this, you maybe implement a queue system where where the favorite and unfavorite tweets, like they go into a queue and you only execute them once the previous one has succeeded. This way it avoids having corrupted data like this. But despite of how we have implemented our database here, the way we had implemented our front end, we avoided that issue. So that actually brings us to another problem we have with this implementation of ours here. We are sending too many requests. Like if you spam this button 100 times, you're going to send 100 requests. If you have 100 users sending 100 requests each, you're getting 10,000 requests. So if you host something like this on Vercel, be prepared to go bankrupt within a few minutes. So how can we reduce the amount of requests that you are sending? Well, we can debounce it, right? So we can say when you click the favorite button, we can use say the lodash debounce function here to make sure, say we are calling the endpoint maybe every 250 milliseconds. And to make sure that we reduce the amount of requests sent, we can tell lodash to pick only the trailing event from the multiple events fired. So here's how this trailing variable works here. So let's clear our console here. So if I click it once and then click it, you get 2 events, right? So let's try to click it multiple times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Notice that only one request has been sent. So let's say to favorite it by maybe sending an odd number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only one request was sent. Let's go to the network tab here so that you can see the effect. Let me just refresh the page first. So clicking on it favorites a tweet, and clicking and favorites it sends 2 requests, right? So let's send multiple requests. So click, 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 click. Are you noticing now the amount of requests being sent is reducing drastically because only the last click is registered when you click on this button. That's the use of this trailing value here. So if a user wants to spam the button clicks, so let me clear our console here. So if we click multiple times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, only one request will be registered instead of 10 events. So debouncing is also a very great method of reducing the number of requests sent to your server. So I don't know if any of this made sense to you, but I wanted to cover that aspect of optimistic UI updates and reducing the number of requests you send to your server and that data corruption thing. I'm still not sure what goes on here, where the value becomes completely different from the actual like count of the tweets. But anyway, I hope we used this opportunity well and learned a couple of things about handling such user interactions in your components. So thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.